Welcome to the Dear Doc podcast, where we will discuss the business of running a dental practice with a panel of experts. Now, your host, Dr. Christopher Hoffpower.
Guys, this is Dr. Christopher Hoffpower, and I am coming to you today from my home studio here in Alvin, Texas. We had a couple of technical glitches getting on the air, but we're both live streaming this and recording it as a podcast. So if you don't catch the entire thing, or you want to go back and, take a look at it, just check out the Dear Doc podcast. It'll be the latest episode. Now, today, I am joined by Maria Fuertes and Nicole Perry from Carestack. Nicole, should I give you a little accent on your name too?
I'm actually Nicole McVicker.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Nicole. You guys have a Nicole Perry too, don't you?
We do. Yeah, we do have a Nicole Perry.
So my apologies. I should have asked for clarification beforehand. So, guys, today we're going to talk to Maria and Nicole a little bit about some of the efficiencies and economies of scale that DSOs have been able to reach, and which ones are applicable to the private practice. It's often debated. Maria, I'm sure you hear this all the time. Is the day of the private practice over? And you have all these scary statistics like by the year 2030, 70% of practices are going to be DSO run rather than private practice. I think that's put out by the ADA. And so those numbers are kind of scary. And because people are resistant to change, a lot of times they don't look at the DSO model and see what can we do, what can we take away to make our practices more efficient and better run and be able to survive. Because folks, the day of the private practice is not over, but the day of having a practice and not running it like a business is, and frankly, should have been over a long time ago. With the squeeze that we're getting from the cost of supplies and the cost of goods sold, compounded by, on this hand, the reduction in reimbursements by insurance plans, today is the day you need to make a change in your practice. So, Maria, without further ado, would you do me a favor? Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about why it is I'm having you specifically on this podcast and on this Facebook Live to talk about efficiencies in DSOs.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Chris, and I'm very happy to be here representing Carestack, as well as, I'm here with my partner in crime, which is Nicole McVicker. But, let me first say that I am the director of the Practice Heroes program at Carestack, and we're a team of dental professionals with combined over 25 years of experience in the clinical and administrative capacities. And our mission is to empower dental offices with real-world knowledge. Now, going into your question, I got to tell you this, working in several DSOs throughout my dental career, there are DSOs that do it well, and then there are also the DSOs that have areas of opportunity.
Absolutely.
But so the DSOs that do it well.
That's the nice way of saying they suck at something.
I'm trying to be politically correct here.
I love it.
I still have friends out there, okay? So
absolutely.
So I got to tell you, like, top 6 things I can tell you this, that we take a look at structure, process equals outcomes, building solid foundations. Yep, we're always making adjustments, tweaking it, the practice operating cycle, if you will, because as you know, the dental industry had grown, went from cementing crowns to CEREC machines in the practice, now to laser dentistry, implants, and so on and so forth. So you're always wanting to pivot and tweak your practices, still have the same structure and process, but always expand and adjust according to what the industry is showing out there for you. So building a solid foundation. We also make informed decisions based on data. There are some people that make decisions on what they know than what they think they know. Absolutely. And I've been in instances where decisions were made not looking at the data, just kind of looking at it like from an emotional outcome, or because someone brought it to my attention that we're doing X, Y, and Z. And so mistakes are made that way, and you're having to now navigate and kind of, what do I do now to put a stopgap on this error. So make informed decisions on data.
Absolutely.
We also
Now,
yep.
Maria, before you go any further, you left out a huge chunk of why you're such an expert. How many different DSOs have you worked at as operations director or director of operations, or in some similar capacity?
4, actually.
Okay, 4.
Yes.
Okay, that's a heck of a lot of experience, and that is super, super impressive. Now,
Yes.
before we jump into everything we're going to talk about, Nicole, I'd love you to take the opportunity to introduce yourself, particularly to me, since I thought Miss Perry was coming on. So, so talk to us a little bit about who you are and why you are here talking to us today about achieving operational efficiencies.
So again, my name is Nicole McVicker. I am the manager of the client success team. So we have a coaching division as well, which also helps you kind of get into understanding how the centralization of the cloud-based program is super imperative to growing this efficiency. And like Maria said, really kind of honing in on that data and really explaining to everyone where they're at, what their health of the practice is actually looking like. It does, my role currently, as we are growing as well. So I also manage clients, and I have been a really, really big part of growing our current database of our analytics platform and helping our current offices that are on board really extend their growth and extend their own practices to achieve their goals. So I actually met Maria the first time at one of the practices that she was the head of operations for. So her and I have been working really closely together, and the Practice Heroes team and the coaching team do work hand in hand to make sure that everyone has a really solid foundation into making those transitions into this cloud-based platform and making sure that they have a good experience.
Excellent. Okay, so now, Maria, you were about to jump into some great, big, amazing information, and I had to interrupt you because I want to make sure we introduce Nicole. I want you guys to kind of tag team on this, and I'm going to give you your first question. What is the number one thing that DSOs are doing that private practices should be doing? And I want you guys to take turns on this one. Maria?
Sure. They have, or they make finance as a big part of their business. Doctors don't talk about EBITDA. There's the mindset of how money is in the bank, and profit is not a dirty word. You're investing in your practice. So I can tell you that for sure. Yep.
And sales is not a dirty word either, folks.
Nope, sales is not a dirty word either.
All right, Nicole.
So I would say just kind of elaborate on that, analytics, data, really getting to know your practice, knowing where you are, and numbers don't lie. So having that foundation and just being able to determine maybe if you're having RCM workflow problems, even clinical workflow problems, we can identify all of that through our analytics.
Excellent. Now I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have to explain to them what RCM means. I know.
Revenue cycle management. So basically all of the funds, the finances, measuring how well you are doing with your insurance collections, your patient collections, over the counter, how well you're collecting from patients at the time that they walk into the office and have procedures done, and the turnaround time that you actually receive money from your insurance to today.
Perfect. So guys, in layman's terms, you're looking at, are they paying? How much of what you're producing are you collecting? And how long is it taking you to get it? Because all those things are super important to the only financial KPI that is important, which is cash flow. Doesn't matter what your net production is if you can't cash flow the practice. So I would say net production is probably a close second. I love what you said there about making unemotional decisions. In my own practice, we use management by numbers, which basically means we graph every statistic. We look at what that graph looks like. Depending upon the behavior of the slope of the graph, both in the near term and in the long term, there are very specific formulas that we exercise. Because it's not just important to look at what your KPIs are doing, because if you don't have a factual basis to act upon those numbers, you're still going to make an emotional decision and then logically justify it by the numbers that you're seeing on the paper. You have to actually have foundationally some training in how to make the right decisions based upon what you're seeing. Would you guys agree with that? What are some of the systems that they have in place in DSOs that might help dentists to make good factual, logical decisions based upon their numbers? And give some examples if you can.
I can tell you that we looked at the ratio of AGR, which is adjusted gross revenue, to the UCR UCF equivalent revenue. And so what does that look like? Well, there are doctors that are in network, and in every state, obviously, every landscape is different. So what that does is that it's measuring that if you are in network, what is the percentage between your contractual allowance rate, against your UCR fees? And if you're like working 80 cents to the dollar, then that's a good percentage. But if you start going backwards, like 60, 50, 33 cents to the dollar, and if you're measuring that, then obviously there's going to be two things. Number one, you're going to take a look at it and say, okay, like case in point, I was working for this large dental group in Southern California, and one of our offices was, surrounded by HMO, and I know that HMO is like not a, something that's not popular out there, but I got to tell you, this is where then an office has to flex and schedule differently. And the only reason why, Chris, is because we had large employer groups surrounding this practice. There were unified school districts and pharmacy, Monster, the drink. So in essence, there were larger employer groups. We knew that we would have this influx of patients. However, though, we started keeping track of what our effectivity is, if you will. And that's a made-up word, but it is the percentage between your AGR and UCR fees. And so we went back to our dental insurance and asked them, hey, listen, we're only getting X amount to the dollar. You're only paying us supplement for crowns and what have you. Based on our analysis here, we're due for an increase. And we did this with Delta Care USA. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that, but we did. And we were able to increase a substantial amount because, Southern California was a kind of closed with respect to negotiating fees. So having that informed decision and looking at the data, looking at the ratio was definitely important. We also looked at practice expenses. So where are we at now in the market? Currently, I know there's a lot of shortages, right, within the dental practices, including the DSOs. So people costs are going up. And we used to measure it by 21% of net revenue. That's if you're taking away the doctor's salary. So hygiene comp should be 7%, admin 7%, DA, the dental assistant 7%. But if you're looking at your staff costs now, I know it's hard to find the right people for the right seats, then you're going to need to ask yourself, then what is it that I'm going to do differently to help then drive revenue? Because if I'm paying more than, 21% of people cost against my net revenue, what should I do then to grow my business? Should I add more hours? Do I open up the doors and working on a Saturday and a Sunday? I mean, those are things that you have to consider. Or do you start looking at your expenses, leveraging it and being more creative? I actually spoke to a doctor the other day about perhaps not using a hygienist for now and purchasing certain types of instrumentation to help her, do the job that a hygienist may do, for that fact and that matter, because she couldn't pay the $60. So,
Right.
There's practice expenses, and leveraging expenses is a huge thing that we did in DSOs. Like I said, again, we made finance as a big business. EBITDA is not a word that doctors like to look at, and you should be looking at it,
Oh, absolutely.
And then of course, yeah. And of course, RCM or accounts receivable, if you're going to produce, then you need to collect. And like I said, if there aren't any great foundations in place, they get amplified even more so when you're converting to a software. And I know Nicole can speak to that.
Absolutely. And so, Nicole, one of the things that we brought you guys on for is also to talk a little bit about how Carestack can address some of these very specific concerns. So for those of you who don't know, Carestack is a sponsor of the Business of Dentistry and the Dear Doc podcast. They've been very generous to us. They've helped us to actually bring on people to certify that dentists are dentists, to get them into the group more quickly. And we're also talking about doing some CE and things like that. Carestack's got an amazing Carestack University. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should. So that's my spiel. FCC says we have to let people know. I want to make sure we go overboard with it so people do know you guys are sponsors. Nicole, talk to me a little bit about how we can address the proper management of these KPI through Carestack.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working on our analytics platform for several years now. And so we've basically got all these KPIs like at a glance. You can access them so easily now. You can build your own dashboards, but the main ones, especially that even Maria had just mentioned, making sure that what you are producing, that you are collecting that money. So we do provide patient collection, transaction date based, making sure that everyone is actually collecting based on when you're producing and collecting it in a certain amount of time. One other one that we have is, I know this is going to be a term that's familiar with a lot of people and some maybe not, but over-the-counter collection, basically at the same time that you're producing the services, you're also collecting. So, we do provide the ability to upload your fee schedules and things like that. So, you should have a very good idea of what you should be collecting from that patient. So that if you have a patient that walks out the door on that same day of service, it makes that money so much harder to collect. So we do provide the capability to identify if the front desk staff is collecting, when and how much that they should. Also on that same point, we do provide different KPIs for insurance collection rates, percentages, and numerical values as well. And those have proven, it's opened up a lot of opportunities to identify if there are issues with either the front desk or the office managers or even the treatment coordinators, if they're actually presenting the treatment and they're collecting based on what those calculations are with their fee schedules. So just that over-the-counter collection rate has opened up so many opportunities that you don't have to send out statements as much because people are collecting at the time of service.
So I like to tell people that Carestack is an accidental PMS, practice management software. It's accidental because it was actually an analytics machine before it was anything else. It's like a PMS or an EHR that was built on top of an analytics machine, which is nice because this doesn't come at any additional cost to the practice owner to be able to use this dashboard or build their own dashboard. Now, there's a lot of folks out there who have tried to pull the data out of your major PMSs and to make it pretty so that it's easy to read. Now, we won't go into naming who they are, but they're going to cost you between $499. Well, actually, I think one of them comes in at $399 now, but $399 to, let's say, $599 additional every month to do that. And heck, that's more than half of the price of Carestack, which is amazing to me. So I think that's one of the really, really compelling arguments that you have for switching to Carestack is so many of those features are built directly into it. I think one of the things that dentists don't think about is there's this thing called the profitability formula or the impact formula. Various and sundry people have taken credit for it, and they have they've renamed it, and they have they've made it their own. But the basic formula says that the number of patients that you have come in, the number of visits by patients that you have come in from any source, multiplied by the average value per visit or the amount collected per visit, multiplied times your collections percentage, minus your overhead is your profits. It's a common sense thing outside of the world of dentistry, right? But inside dentistry, it really isn't. And so when you're looking at this, not only does Carestack help you to know how many patients that came in, right? What was your average doctor visit cost? What was your percent collections? What was your overhead? Every single one of these things is tracked in Carestack. You could actually spit out your net profitability pretty much instantaneously. And you're telling me now you can actually design your own dashboard. I didn't know that. That's super cool. So you could actually look at month to month, week to week, day to day, what was our net profit today without having to do a whole bunch of calculations. That is super cool. So our next thing. All right, Maria, you've been thinking. What is the second thing that dental practices, private dental practices, are doing wrong or could do better that DSOs are doing better?
There's going to be a third question after this, right? Because I have a couple more after this. But
there will be.
Yes, I would have to say we professionalize the business. What does that mean? So, you have your single doctor practice, or, let's say a couple of doctors in a practice, but then your office manager, they're kind of like the player coach, if you will. And, coming from the avenue of coming in and fixing offices, if you will, it's been my, my style, if you want to come in and help fix and build systems and structure. I always see 100% of the time that the manager is lacking knowledge or haven't been given the chance to grow. And what I mean by that, by number one, having them be part of an organization that'll help them grow professionally. I know that there is, there's ADOM that I know of, but are there societies or communities within the towns that can help them grow their skill sets? There's also taking classes, if you will. The practice managers and the DSO also know how to manage and lead different people. Mm-hmm. There's times where it's better to not deal with conflict than dealing conflict with head on, and that's one of the things that I know we've taught our managers to on how to lead versus just managing, right? Because you have to influence people, and you also have to be partners with doctors. So there's a lot of that emotional intelligence that we also train, as well as understanding the business, educating them on how to read profit and loss statements, how to plan and forecast, and how to leverage expenses. Those are the things that was an added value that I knew when I was working for a DSO. I had other managers wanted to come on board because they felt like they were going to have more knowledge and grow and expand their role. They wanted to be something bigger than what they are, like day to day, just as a player coach. So investing in your people, I would say, is something that we did. I think that there are doctors that are practicing now that do it better than others. And there are doctors that would just rather, not deal with the conflict. And what happens then, Chris, is that I've seen informal leadership then take hold of the practice, because that manager may not have had the leadership skills, but it's easier for us to hold on to people than look for new ones. So once again, is number one, hiring the right people in the right seats, giving them the education and knowledge to help them then, obviously lead and manage the business, having them go through classes, training, if you will, emotional intelligence, how to deal with personality styles. And then, fast forward, having our accounting team and finance, we did a lot of one-on-ones in understanding the P&Ls, planning and forecasting, and leveraging expenses.
I have to say, I couldn't agree with you more. I would actually go a step further, and you're way nicer than I am. So I'm going to say what I think, and we won't say this is probably what you were saying, but So basically, most office managers in dental practices aren't actually office managers. They're glorified front desk people. They have no skills. Their dentist was afraid that they were going to lose them, and so they kept giving them raises. And at a certain point, because the dentist didn't know how to do the front desk stuff and didn't know how to file insurance, the dentist became so terrified and thought, well, I can't just keep giving her raises. I'll make her an office manager, and then no one else in the office will get upset because she's paid more. And that's pretty much the common track I've seen dentists take whenever it comes to front desk. Nicole, you're nodding really hard over there. So
Yes.
I actually
like this is very familiar.
I had this happen in my own practice. I had an office manager, a front desk queen is what I like to call them now. Well, if they don't have the skills of an office manager. An office manager should be respected as such because she actually manages. But unless your office manager has the power of hiring and firing, unless she has the power to okay purchase orders and knows exactly what you want and is fulfilling those wishes, unless a lot of things, then they're not really an office manager. So this lady in my office, she came to me one day and I said, look, we're still not hitting productivity goals. What's going on? And she tells me, that's not true. Every single day this past month has been scheduled to target. And I looked at her and I said, are you looking at the adjusted production or are you looking at production before write-offs? This was way back whenever I was not fee for service. And she said, I don't even understand why that makes a difference. And I said, well, you can't collect money that's being adjusted off. And she had no idea what gross versus net was. And these are basic skills that anyone who's actually an office manager should know because they should have some business training. And that is on us as dentists because many dentists will simply abdicate that role to their front office desk, front desk person. And that's when they become front desk queens. And these dentists are then held hostage by someone who very often, and I would say probably 60% of the time, begins embezzling from the dentist because the dentist doesn't know what the hell is going on. They don't know their own numbers, and they just basically have no checks and balances to establish that this person is going to be honorable and trustworthy in the representation of that dentist in business. What have you guys found? And Nicole, I know that you wanted to jump in on this one, so I'm going to let you run.
Yeah, so we've actually been able to kind of identify or open up the opportunity for maybe someone like you explained, maybe has been working there for a long time. Maybe it wasn't as obvious that there might have been some deficits in knowledge or understanding of like what's actually happening in their finances because of how other softwares might run their finances. So with Carestack, there's really no hiding any of those numbers. Like we said, numbers don't lie, right? So everything is super transparent. Everything is auditable. And we've been able to help some dentists actually identify, that maybe some of they couldn't come up with missing cash. So it came down to the point where we didn't point out necessarily that there was like embezzlement or stealing going on, but she did what she was able to identify that her cash was the only thing that was ended up missing. So it comes down to that one front desk queen, if you will, who can't wasn't really taking accountability for what was going on in the office in general, and didn't really have the care to learn what the important aspects of the business actually is, because it's not the person that's running the office needs to be financially responsible, in a sense of like handling your business. You're doing the services. You want to make sure that the person that you have working on your front desk is capable of getting you the money that you've worked so hard for, right? Absolutely. So we've also been able to identify maybe some people, we've been able to help people become more knowledgeable and more confident. And that's the biggest thing for me, is giving that person that might be really, really good at what they do, but they're lacking the confidence, or, they don't want to be so transparent that they've, I've been doing this for a really long time. I've been doing it for 10 years. And now there's more access to data. We have more insight now. So Absolutely. That's been a very important piece in making the practice actually grow.
I have to say, a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, messaged me a little while back, and he said, finally figured out what the problem is with my office manager. She didn't even know what an unassigned credit was. And you guys know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That blew my damned mind.
Yeah.
What kind of mess did you guys find when you dug in? I mean, don't answer because I know it's confidential
Yes.
between you and a client.
Right.
That kind of thing just blows my mind. Another front desk issue we had. I was talking to one of the front desk early on whenever I started my practice, and I said, I don't understand why we continue to have to write these refund checks every single week. What's going on here? And she said, well, we just quote the patient what the software tells us. And I said, well, so are you doing an IVF on each one of these insurances? Or are you doing an insurance build? And she said, we verify every patient, Dr. Huffpower. And I went, it's not the same as a build. And
Yes.
so I think, and this horrifies me because as I've been running this group and as I've gotten more involved in helping other dentists and seeing what's going on in their practice, and as you know, I own a couple of companies that's privy to some inside information to other people's practices. What I find is that almost no dental office is doing a complete and proper insurance build.
Yeah.
And that is your
I agree.
segue into how awesome your insurance module is. So your insurance module is one of my favorite. Maria, I know I make you talk about that every time we talk, but it's really,
I'm gonna defer that to Nicole because she's the expert in it. I mean, I was the user, if you will, but you know, it's like what we said, right? If they don't do a proper insurance build, like an IVF, if you will,
right.
Things can definitely go awry. And here's the results of the outcomes. So I'm gonna defer that to Nicole about the insurance.
So are we talking about the insurance payment screen specifically?
I'm
I
talking
think it's the
about
benefits.
your whole module.
Oh, our
Because
whole, okay.
it actually
Okay.
connects so many different pieces of information. That's what really impressed me. When I started using it, because I went through the training, we couldn't adopt it in my practice because there's some communication issues, because I partnered with a DSO, and they use a very specific piece of software, and that specific piece of software does not want to open up their knowledge to Carestack. So they don't want to write a well, it's not really a bridge software, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They don't want to allow you access to their program. So
Right.
I started training in it because I wanted to know, okay, this company says they have this amazing software. So I did a quote, and all of a sudden this little red exclamation point pops up. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I click on it, and it's like,
Right.
this is over the patient's limit, or this is not
Right.
covered and will be downgraded to such and such. And I went,
Yeah.
where's this been all my life? So
We get that all the time.
it's, and it's one of those little unsung hero type things that
Yes.
just have so many amazing features that whenever you're talking to dentists about things, you're like, oh yeah, we've got text to pay and all this stuff. And the dentist is getting excited about those things, but it's those little things like, hey, you can have this conversation now instead of after it comes back denied, and how you make that job so much easier. That just
Right.
blows my mind.
Well, I want to talk about that because, I mean, I hope you don't mind, Nicole. There is something that I very much love in the software where it's all about efficiency, right? And so being in other types of software that I've worked in the past, there was always about like having to run a report, like downloaded Excel, if it can be downloaded Excel, and having to manipulate it. And so now what we have in our claims control center, if you will, I'm going to just name it that, there's a way that you can actually work on the insurance aging live. So it's like live, and what I mean by that, real-time information, where instead of having to flip through reports looking for like Delta Dental, 3 here, 5 in the next page, you could actually enter it into a column, like a search bar, if you will, and now your insurance people or your admin people can then work the insurance aging efficiently. So I'm gonna look for the Delta Dental, and I can also check on the drop-down box if I want to just concentrate on 60 days and over. You can do that as well. So you can sort by insurance carrier as well as sort by days aging. And the same goes to the reporting, where the reporting definitely separates the insurance aging and the patient aging. It's not, once again, you having to look through several reports and try to make heads or tails and
there's so
manipulate
much
it.
beauty there in what you're talking about, because guys, if you've got the ability to do this, we talked about data earlier, right? And so if your insurance aging is, unrealistically represented by Lincoln Finance, so to speak, there's an issue in your claims getting to Lincoln Finance, and you can do a deep dive and go, oh, boom, at first sight, I know there's something wrong here. And you can investigate it, find the problem, and fix the problem before it overwhelms you down the road. And that's amazing. The other point you brought up there that I really want to address is efficiency. So a lot of PMSs, and I mean practice management systems, docs. So a lot of PMSs out there are set up to where the front desk and the back office see different things. So you've got your clinical view, and your doctor's used to going, oh, well, to get to that note, you just go click, click. And then you're at front desk view, and you're trying to show something to your front desk, and it's, okay, you got to click, 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 click. And anytime I go over 3 clicks, I think there's an inefficiency in that software that needs to be addressed. That's actually how we design software that I work on in my companies. I don't want to have to click more than 3 times to get to any damn thing. One of the things I love about Carestack is that you simplify the training because everybody's got the same view. You work out of the same exact view, and everybody can be trained the same exact way. I don't have to train the front desk, oh, look, if you're on this screen from scheduling, you got to go to blah, 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 then you got to do this and you got to do that. And it's not a different route to get to that same information. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to kind of even elaborate on that a little bit further, the design is to adopt that same mentality, that the same person that's running the front desk and the same person that's setting up the operatory, they should be on the same page. There should be a mutual connection that they don't even have to really speak, that they can just visualize what's on that appointment. And from the front to the back, everything should be a very seamless process.
I just love that. I love that thought process. So Nicole, you wanted to tell us a little bit more about the insurance module, or did we cover what you were going to tell us?
Yeah, so with what you had said, we basically have the ability to do that insurance verification through the platform, and you can plug that information directly in there. You don't have to, you have the doc center, but you don't have to refer back to those documents. Everything is you can fill in everything. And then, like you said, you'll see those indicators telling you like, oh, you're over your limit, or this, you've maxed out all your calculations. You can visualize everything. You've got your deductibles. As long as the information,
the fact that it's going to be downgraded, hey, that's going to be downgraded to an amalgam. How often do front desks miss that?
All the time.
Often.
Yeah. So I love it. I absolutely love it. So what is our third thing?
I would say that working as a DSO, we were always thinking about growth. We were always asking the questions, how do I grow organically? Or how do I grow through acquisitions? And with that, and we made this as a partnership and a practice within the organization. And what I mean by that, it wasn't just like, your C-suites and your directors, it was director and our doctor leaders,
Nope,
so
tell them what C-suite is.
C-suites are your CEO, CFO, COO, CTO, CIO, all the
like a veritable alphabet soup in that room.
yes. So, growing organically, we have great systems in place in Carestack, not only are, through our analytics, but also through scorecards, because you're asking yourself like, okay, so how am I going to grow organically? Am I at 80% or 95% utilization? What I mean by that, through the schedule, when's the next availability? Do I have a new patient coming in? Is it within a week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So, there's a utilization report that you can run. You could also look at your business in a way where, we're only doing 90% of prophy. We're just like a prophy mill. What happens to the perio? Where's the sealants going? So these are things that they can actually, and I know Nicole can speak to this, we can create scorecards as well as analytics so that you can track your business, gauge what's going on, having the pulse of practice. So organically, we're always looking to that,
So Nicole, I'd like you to expound on that and talk to us a little bit about how you create the scorecards, How do you use them, and how do you use them specifically without upsetting your team?
Without upsetting. So the scorecards are a part of, like, we have our reports and we have our analytics dashboard, and the scorecards are the same KPIs, but they're just more, our analytics dashboard does go by a specific, month to date, or what we typically run in a health perspective would be like the last 30 days. The scorecards are intended so that you can generate those and keep those date ranges, so you can kind of identify from those points how well you are growing, or how well you are increasing your percentages in terms of patient collection, insurance collection, new patients seen. Another one that's really important is your scheduled versus actual. How much of that same day, if you're doing the prophy mill, why aren't you able to, convert some of those patients back into other treatment? The scorecards are just kind of like a line level entry, as opposed to the dashboard where they're tiles. But they are capable of giving you all that same information, but you're able to store it and look at it in a different way and kind of compare it. And on that same note, the analytics dashboard does also have the capability to, if you're running your analytics right now for the last 30 days, it does give you the ability to identify what that previous date range is. So are you up or are you down comparatively?
Can we look at the previous month over year, and how far back can we do that?
So right now we have the capability to compare it to the last previous year. I think we are planning on bringing in more capability from that as well. But right now we are limited to just at least that last period, that last year.
Okay. So is there anything else I missed or should have asked about that specific topic?
Is there anything else you'd like to elaborate in terms of the scorecards, Maria?
Well, I know that we were using it with another client with respect to the, the prophy versus perio percentages, if you will, because I know that you can create the scorecards as well as the analytics down to the code level. If
Yep.
you're gauging performance, let's say of a new doctor, and there's expectations that you've laid forth, you've hired an associate or what have you, and you've basically let them know that this is what I want you to do, to do X, Y, and Z as the doctor owner, of course. And I know that there are doctor practices out there that are looking at their associate performance, where they've laid down the basically the level of expectation. So you can also gauge, and I hate to use the word performance, but it's the only type of word that comes into my mind. And it's because, you have these doctors that may have just come out of dental school, and you're a great mentor. And you also want them to ramp up production, perhaps. So this is a good way for you to give them the data, he or she, the data as to, this is where you're at, this is where you should be, and you're tracking great. I see more of X, do a little bit more of Y, and you'll get to Z. So I've seen doctors use the analytics in helping them coach and mentor their associate in their practice.
Absolutely. And on that same note, not only just the other associates in there, but it's also, even when we've seen single provider practices, we've also been able to identify maybe some areas where they thought that they were doing a little bit better, but we actually identified that there was maybe some workflows that were contributing to inflated production. So we get them back down to, understanding where they actually are, so that they can properly manage their finances.
Talk to us a little bit about those workflows and what you've seen specifically, so that if our doctors out there are having this problem, they can fix it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever you have a code, whether that's a custom code or an actual ADA code, dental code, there's a fee attached to that, right? So if you are completing multiple codes maybe in place for like a crown prep or a crown delivery, as opposed to just the D2740. If you're using some workarounds maybe to get around your insurance, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, Chris. I know it's different in every state, of course. So it's sometimes the insurance won't pay until you deliver the crown or something like that. So
Absolutely.
if you attach fees to those, then, you're inflating your production. So those, it's important to make sure that everyone clinically in the front and the back knows how to collect on those and what the proper protocols for that. So we've actually been able to advise a proper protocol instead of what they were using.
That's a really good point, and it's something I think definitely I don't think about anymore because, like I said, I'm fee for service.
Right.
Don't have to think about those things anymore. But it is nice. I think if I started taking insurance again, my entire team would just leave. They've just gotten so used to just how amazing it is not to have to worry about those problems. But so what is number 4?
Well, we did talk about structure, processes equals outcomes, right? So
Yes.
we did kind of like a high level information with respect to that. It's one of the things that I've seen most of the time is where doctors are not laying down the foundation. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, you've opened up your practice. You've obviously had a vision. And there are many times I've seen many doctors veer away from that vision because now they're working in the practice than working on the practice. And I know that's a lot to handle. I can't tell you because I'm not a doctor owner, if you will, but I can see the blood, sweat, and the tears. But that's where you then, if you're hiring right and you're giving them the tools to be successful, meaning training, getting them trained, training them in some way, form, or fashion, and then laying down your foundations. There's that part where that miscommunication was never communicated. So people are coming up with their own processes. And so that's what happens where we see people coming over, converting. And once again, it's amplified where, and I always look at this. I always look at the AR or accounts receivable first. That tells me whether there's busts in the systems. And so usually that comes back to our front administrative team or our clinical team are not posting procedures correctly or not knowing what type of procedure codes to complete, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be structures and processes in the clinical aspect as well as the administrative aspect, and all that has to meld together. Mm-hmm. One of the things I see too is that you're paying for a lot of, let's say you're doing a lot of marketing, right? And you're paying for all this marketing. You're looking at your ROI or return on investment, and you don't have a process in place where, let's say you did a lot of print ads or you did a TV ad and there was not a code in the system to say this patient was referred to us by the TV ad. Mm-hmm. You're just putting them in as a new patient and
you're just throwing money out the door then.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where
I'm going to say this.
You got to lay down the roadmap, if you will. Go ahead.
Hold on, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hold on, something came on in the background. Let me kill this. Very sorry about that. I got a weird echo there. The Facebook Live all of a sudden started playing in the background. So one of my biggest pet peeves is that doctors don't actually know where their advertising dollars are going. And by the way, Maria, check your messenger, your Facebook Messenger. I bet you can't help but smile when you see what I sent you. That's from my phone because I was trying to explain this to someone the other day.
Uh-huh.
I'll wait. I want to see when you open it.
Okay. Doc sent a photo. Oh my God, yes.
Yep. I believe in a true reciprocal model though.
Yes.
The one that I draw out is actually a triangle with double-headed arrows going in each direction because each one can inform the other. But it's something that so many doctors they've never even seen that model, and so
speaking my language.
I thought you'd like that.
Yes.
So what do you think about that thought about a truly reciprocal model where each one informs the others? So the middle model that is there, imagine that model, but all of the arrows are double-sided.
That's almost like similar to my practice operating cycle. Mine's more.
We're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But it's true. It is reciprocal. It's also cyclical, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
every part of your business, whether it's pre-arrival, there's exercises, events, things that are happening real time that have to happen for pre-arrival. Then there's arrival. What does the intake look like? What is the handoff from the front desk to the clinical? And then you're
Absolutely.
talking about treatment and of course post treatment. So yeah, we can talk about this.
So and so getting back to the model, and the reason that you brought it up, we're talking about insurance and or rather advertising, and I was going to talk about insurance because one of the things that most dentists don't realize is that insurance is the single lowest ROI, most expensive, and least effective advertising that they run in their practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because insurance is advertising. The whole reason you take it is not so that you can get paid less. I mean, if you want to get paid less, you could just discount it at the front desk, I suppose. You take it so that they send you patients, and your agreement with the insurance company is that I will accept a decrease in the amount that I charge for my fees to your patients that you send me through this form of advertising. But see, the thing is that in all standard business models across the board, no matter what industry you're in, the acceptable amount of expenditure whenever it comes to your gross revenue is 7%. And any advertising method that costs more than 7% is considered to be a complete and utter waste of money. So why are 90% of dentists taking insurance? That didn't have a good reason either.
Right, but I can tell you. I mean, I can tell you why we did, and it's because well, it's because it's a different business model, right? Even DSOs have different business models,
right,
against other DSOs. So, the reasons for number one, employer groups. If you have huge employer groups within that community, obviously, you want to take them in. And we did a test one time, and it was at at a very busy market area, if you will, where we decided to drop it. Now, I'm not telling everybody to do this, but you have to take a look at obviously your business model. And I'm not saying for everybody to do this. We just decided to do this.
Right.
We were thinking our doctors are great doctors. We have wonderful hygienists. They'll stay. But unfortunately, we started gauging and analyzing as to the many of the patients that would return back, wanting to come back as out of network. And unfortunately, because how they were sold in the employer, right? You're going to get this insurance. This is how much you should pay. I mean, this is how much should be your copay. So they'll tell us, can't afford it. So it took a while for us to actually grow the business, being out of network out of that one insurance company. It's just you can't grow it overnight, but you got to have a plan in place. Prior to that, we ended up also having a membership plan. Because we wanted to. Okay, so if we're going to get rid of that one, it was only 30% of effectivity, let's say. So let's go ahead and get create our membership plan. We have by X amount of UCR fees, we're getting more versus staying on that plan. But it took us, I would say, like over a year and a half to grow the business back up, only because there was such a huge volume of that employer group. So that's just a story I can say.
That makes perfect sense. By the way, how are you liking your podcasting setup? Did it work out well for you?
I'm still kind of like, I'm not a techie kind of person. I did get my ring light and everything, but I may have to probably call you and you tell me how to do it.
We'll just get on FaceTime. I'll tell you what to hook up.
Yes.
So, I wish we could all have nice windows so we could have natural light like Nicole here does. Gosh.
I don't know. I'm looking. I'm like, I think I should get a ring light.
Oh, no. Actually, your lighting is almost exactly perfect. You have a nice isosceles triangle on the opposite side of the main light. I'm using what they call hatchet lighting, where both sides of my face are lit and the center's dark. I like to call it the Batman lighting.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. I'm so tempted. I'm the Batman. So we've covered a few things. What is your fifth thing. And Nicole, do you want to take this one, or Maria, do you want to tag in on it?
I'd like to tag on it too.
Okay.
Good groups have good doctor leadership versus doctor metership. That's what my colleague uses.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the doctor
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
Micromanaging going on there.
Or holding on to knowledge, not wanting to mentor. And you know, I'm always about this, whether you're a manager or a doctor leader, you know, you're as good as your weakest link, and the people that work with you and for you is an extension of you. So it's always good to have that leader that people can, you know, number one, not be afraid to go to.
Yes.
And the doctor leader, you know, they know already, they have that safe relationship, if you will, that you can mentor them and coach them. So I've always seen that successful groups always have the best doctor leaders versus the doctor meters.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yes.
You know, it's my mother taught me something a long, long time ago. And she said, you know, Chris, when you do this, there's 3 fingers pointing directly back at you. Whenever you're looking for someone to blame for something, rather than looking for the cause of the hardship or the pain that you're trying to fix, then you're looking in the wrong direction. So just,
Yeah.
you know, my humble opinion there. Nicole, did you want to weigh in on that? Some doctor metership?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Knowledge is absolutely power. And from my background, like I started working as my very first job before I was, you know, even 18. I was working as a lead assistant in a fee-for-service office, and I took the opportunity to just learn as much as I could. And I had a good mentor at that point too, so it taught me a lot. And I feel that it's also helped me kind of get into the place that I am today, and you know, spreading that knowledge to teammates and clients or offices alike. I think it's super important. You know, like I said, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you grow, and that gives us all the ability to reach our goals.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the things that private practices are doing well that DSOs are not. Because it's not all bad, guys. You know, there's a reason private practices still exist. And that's because they are doing something right. And so what is that?
And what I've seen, and Maria, I don't know if you'll agree, but I think that a lot of private practices, you know, they really do focus on that patient care, keeping the dentist in the chair as much as possible, having that, you know, trust and accountability in their front desk, a mutual respect for the patients and the practice.
They really hone in into the community and also know very well to personalize their business, if you will.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of not DSOs, but you know, successful doctor practices, if you will, that are so active in the community, and the community supports them and lifts them up, if you will. It gives back to them. I know that that's one thing, is that personalization of patient care and experience, where they can sometimes just pick up the phone or text you, and not having to go through, let's say, like a voice over IP and for somebody to connect with you. I think that there's that personalized, yeah.
Press 2 for Spanish. Press 3 for Swahili. You know?
First one for the you know, if you have a bill, 2 for what have you. So, yeah. Living and working and playing in the community that you practice, I've seen a lot of success, especially if the doctor's active.
I absolutely agree. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see somebody have the guts to do this. If you'd like to speak to a live person, press 1 now. If you'd like to use the computer, press 2 now. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be refreshing? You pick up the phone and you're like, wait, what? 1? You know, there's some places I'd be pressing 2 as fast as possible. No. I've already dealt with your live people.
Or 0. I just want to talk to a real person.
Oh, gosh. You know, there's actually websites that are dedicated to large businesses and how do you get to a real person. The IRS is notorious for it. There's actually a website that says when the phone picks up, push this number, wait exactly this many seconds, then push this number and this number, then wait, then push this number, and this number, and you'll be talking to a live person. And it's gotten so horrible because, you know, and with the IRS, I get it. But with the dental practice, it's exactly the opposite. We want to remove barriers.
Yes.
To treatment. We want to remove barriers for people to make appointments. We don't want to create them. Now, the IRS, they probably don't want you telling them that they screwed up and, you know, whatever. If they want to talk to you, they want to talk to you and they'll call you. But it's the opposite in a dental office. We're in a service industry. We need to be approachable. We need to be accessible. Yes. So I think that that's a lot of things that private practices are doing right. I'll say, though, there's one thing that we didn't cover that private practices can do that many DSOs do, and they can do that right now. And that is to use enterprise-grade software. Guys, this is where I'm talking about my commercial for Carestack, because Carestack was originally developed. How'd you like that segue, guys? Carestack was originally developed for DSOs. And now we as private practitioners have the access to these powerful tools that DSOs use every day to run circles around you in efficiency. So take some of the hints and tips that we've given today, put them into practice in your practice. Regain your competitive edge, and then keep doing the things you're doing right. Last words up to you guys. Anything else that we need to say today, or anything that I've forgotten to mention?
I think that we've hit it all, Chris. I mean, you really got to hit all the great spots.
Yeah.
I don't think we left anything out, to be honest with you.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Fantastic. So guys, one more time, introduce yourselves one last time. Tell them how they can find out more about Carestack, and then we'll tell everyone goodbye. So
Yep, you
Maria?
You can reach me, Maria Fuertes, at Carestack. So it's M Fuertes, that's Fuertes, not Fuentes, at carestack.com. Nicole.
Again, my name is Nicole McVicker, and you can reach me at nmcvicker, that's NMCVICKER, at carestack.com.
Well, guys, thank you for giving us another hour of your time listening to the sound of my voice drowning on and some of the wonderful information that these lovely human beings have been providing to you. I hope that you have found something in this podcast that was of value. Thank you again for listening. Bye.
Hi.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Maria.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Dear Doc podcast, your source for the business and legal questions associated with your dental practice. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dear Doc podcast on all major platforms.